the spring of 1944, as a battle rages and two ships collide, a German U-boat commander orders his men onto the deck of an Allied destroyer, forcing the American captain to give an extraordinary command.
It's my understanding, and it's my feeling, that he did give the order that had not been given in over a century. Stand by to repel boarders.
In World War II, a subsea weapon allows warriors to fight from beneath the waves. With cunning, force, and tenacity, their enemies strike back. Revolutionary, but still sometimes primitive. It's a desperate bid to change the course of war. Their stories are legend. August 3rd, 1943. In the central Atlantic, the crew of German submarine U-66 surfaces during daylight to speed up a meeting with another U-boat for resupply after a long patrol. They have only a few days of provisions left, and Allied air coverage keeps them on alert, even mid-ocean.
No place to hide anymore compared to the happy times in earlier war years when the open sea was theirs.
Lookouts scan the sky for dangers. And U-boat commander Captain Lieutenant Friedrich Markworth welcomes a non-essential crewman to the bridge.
Usually there's nobody allowed to go to the deck. In case of emergency diving, the more people you have atop of a submarine, the longer it takes to close the hatch, because everybody has to get inside the submarine.
But it's the 20th birthday of torpedo mechanic Harold Nitsch. Markworth grants him a cigarette in the fresh air. The celebration is short-lived. An enemy aircraft dives out of the sun.
There's sheer chaos at the bridge. They hit the second watch officer, he's instantly dead. Other personnel on the bridge is hit. Even the sailor allowed to smoke, his birthday cigarette got hit in his thighs.
Behind the fighter, an Avenger bomber closes in on the U-boat.
These carrier-based aircraft are flying teams. A Wildcat can attack with its guns, while the Avenger can get in position with either a torpedo or a depth charge.
In early 1943, the Allies launch a new strategy against Hitler's U-boats. Aircraft carriers that carry Wildcat fighters and Avenger torpedo bombers patrol the Atlantic. Accompanied by destroyers for protection. These task forces are called hunter-killer groups.
Hunter-killer groups are all about offense. They are actively looking for where the U-boats are at and searching to destroy them. The U.S. Navy and the Royal Navy are taking the war to the U-boats.
As the Wildcat strafes the U-boat, the Avenger lines up to drop its payload. But the release mechanism fails. Nothing happens. Markworth's crew scrambles to exploit the failure.
They were standing orders. He was supposed to fight it out. The anti-aircraft gun had to be manned to shoot back at the attacking aircraft.
Finally, rounds of anti-aircraft fire streak from the conning tower. The fighter initiates another run to silence U-66's gun. bomber circles for another attempt. Bullets pepper the sky. The Avenger approaches. This time, the airman also uses the emergency release to drop his payload. Moments later, explosive force rocks the U-boat. As the Avenger banks away, the Wildcat continues its assault. Bullets strike more of the crew on the bridge. Lieutenant Zerzi Klaus Herbig is shot at the knees. A bullet rips into the abdomen of the U-boat commander. With Markworth badly wounded, Herbig assumes command and orders an emergency dive.
At that point, the injured and already dead are piling up, so they have to get submerged.
They escape the gunfire. But in their rush, those killed have to be abandoned.
It just tells us about the urgency and endangerment of that situation. It's more important to save the wounded and to save the rest of the crew.
The only remaining uninjured officer, Chief Engineer Oberleutnant George Olszewski, must control their rapid descent despite the damage caused by the hunter-killer attack.
That's a kind of mess inside the submarine. And he's getting deeper and deeper. So he has to decide what things to do first to recover the dive, to avoid a implosion and that everybody succumbs to the drowning.
Now on its 9th war patrol, U-66 is a Type 9C U-boat, one of only 54 of its kind, and prized for its long range. Over the course of 8 war patrols, it's credited with sinking more than 170,000 tons of Allied shipping. Olszewski fights the leaks and damaged diving planes. While trying to start the electric motors to help stop their plunge. His actions stabilized the damaged submarine. Nine surviving crew are wounded, 3 with life-threatening injuries. There's no one to provide proper care.
Most boats would not have a medical doctor on board. That was a luxury rarely enjoyed. There were simply too many boats, too few doctors to do that.
A crew member with basic first aid type training does what he can to help. As Markworth and Herbig struggle, 20-year-old Harold Nish passes away.
The torpedo mechanic smoked his last birthday cigarette. He succumbed to his bleeding wounds.
The U-boat and its crew need immediate assistance before more lives are lost. In early August 1943, with the second watch officer killed and Captain Lieutenant Friedrich Markworth and Klaus Herbig incapacitated by the attack, Chief Engineer Oberleutnant George Olszewski assumes command of the U-boat. They remain more than 3,000 kilometers away from their home base in Lorient, France. When U-66 reports its casualties, it takes more than 2 days of radio transmissions to secure a meet with a Kriegsmarine support vessel west of the Azores Islands.
It is not the boats themselves that decide where to meet. It is up to U-boat command.
On August 6, 1943, another U-boat, U-117, approaches U-66 to provide aid. In the early years of the Battle of the Atlantic, surface ships provide Hitler's submarines with provisions and fuel. So U-boat commanders stay on patrol longer and sink more Allied shipping.
It prolongs the time that U-boats can operate at sea. Why go home first, refuel, and go back to the very same place where you had been?
But as Allied air coverage increases, they sink most of these vessels. Karl Dönitz needs another way to support U-boats in combat. In 1942, the German Navy launches its first submersible resupply vessel. They're shorter in length than attack U-boats and have compartments to carry provisions, fuel, and ammunition. German submariners call them Die Milchkühe, or milk cows.
You can extend the fighting life of a U-boat with having a little slurp every once in a while.
When they close in, U-117 begins to transfer desperately needed supplies to U-66. In addition, the milk cow also carries a medical officer who arrives to provide care to the wounded. The commander of U-66, Friedrich Markworth, has had a bullet lodged in his abdomen for 3 days. Without the benefit of an operating room, Dr. Schrenk begins the process to remove it.
It must have been a good feeling for someone like Markworth to know that he was being treated by a professional medical doctor rather than being in the hands of an amateur.
As Markworth, Oberleutnant Klaus Herbig, and the others receive treatment, the first watch officer from the milk cow, Oberleutnant Zerzy Paul Freerks, assumes command.
Freerks is transferred from the milk cow to U-66 because the leadership is nearly destroyed. Olszewski is not trained in seamanship and operational planning. Therefore, we need an executive officer like Freerks to bring the boat safe home.
In broad daylight, both submarines sit exposed on the surface. In addition to general provisions to feed the crew, U-66 also needs fuel. To execute the transfer, the crews run a hose between them. For both submarines, it's risky.
It prolonged their time on the surface, and by 1943, he did not want to spend a lot of time up there.
In the midst of the refueling, an American bomber appears. The U-boats are trapped on the surface.
To get both boats separated, they have to take out the hose and they have to close the valve and the opening for the fuel.
While they make preparations to dive, gun crews scramble to battle stations. The critical resupply becomes another fight to survive. A TBF Avenger approaches U-66 and U-117. The aircraft flies without an escort and carries 2 depth bombs. The American airman specifically targets U-117.
you can take out those milk cows, you're basically taking out the logistical backbone of the German Navy.
It keeps many other U-boats in combat instead of in transit. The explosion severs the fuel transfer hose. And U-117 appears to sustain severe damage. Paul Frerks, who has just left the milk cow, must decide whether he can help.
Frerks probably has a divided heart. His feelings are with his old crew, but he has to protect his new crew. He has responsibility for submarine 66 at the time.
Frerks calls for an emergency dive and takes U-66 to safety. The milk cow is never heard from again. Dr. Schrenk and Paul Frerks will be the only survivors. Schrenk is able to keep Captain Lieutenant Friedrich Markworth and the others alive until they can finally receive proper medical care. But Markworth will no longer serve on combat submarines.
From his wounds, he's not in a condition for more front service. Then he is sent to Gdansk for a training flotilla where he spends the rest of the war.
Following U-66's 9th War Patrol, Allied aircraft increase their range and concentration. German submarines sink only 14 vessels in the North Atlantic, and 49 more U-boats are lost. In response, Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz directs his U-boats to the South Atlantic, where air coverage is lighter and ships still sometimes travel without convoys. He hopes to draw Allied resources away from the European theater.
We are binding the enemy by sending our boats out there into peripheral waters, basically to stir up some trouble.
In early 1944, U-66 departs France for its 10th War Patrol. The submarine journeys thousands of kilometers from France to prowl off the coast of Africa. Oberleutnant Gerhard Seehausen joins the crew for his first war patrol in command of a submarine. Oberleutnant Klaus Herbig returns as first watch officer, cleared for duty after recovering from gunshot wounds. Chief Engineer George Olszewski also stays on. Free from the threat of Allied air coverage, the rookie commander has time to hunt. In less than a month, U-66 sends 4 ships, totaling nearly 20,000 tons, to the ocean floor. They even capture 2 prisoners from one of the vessels to gather intelligence.
At that point of the war, what Seehausen performed was extraordinary. He maybe get lured by the success to stay longer for more sinkings.
By mid-April, their supplies and provisions start to run low. They develop a very unusual problem, not often seen in World War II navies: scurvy.
The personnel was in a position as a seafaring in the 16th or 17th century. They were suffering from scurvy, unimaginable to us today.
It's a vitamin C deficiency, and that was recognized by the early modern period in most navies, especially if you had long journeys.
Normally caused by a lack of fresh fruit and vegetables, scurvy is easily prevented with vitamin C tablets. But the crew member responsible for healthcare on board, Sanitatsmat Wolflock, was new to his job.
Usually you are supposed to count everything which is on the invoice, and that's what he didn't do. He doesn't have the experience, and he was pretty badly surprised.
Physical symptoms can include sores and loose teeth, as well as lethargy and mental confusion. Severe scurvy can lead to death. And after nearly 100 days at sea, other provisions also run low. The Type 9C U-boat has a range up to 21,000 kilometers, but U-66 now lacks enough diesel to travel back to France. Seehausen faces an increasingly dire situation.
There's basically no way to get him home without any resupplies.
He contacts U-boat command and requests assistance. Fortunately, a meeting is set with a milk cow northwest of the Cape Verde Islands, hundreds of kilometers off the African coast. On the morning of April 26, 1944, U-66 approaches the meeting point. The crew on watch are surprised to find enemy ships. Which begin a blistering attack against the milk cow.
Seehausen and his already wasted crew were supposed to defend the milk cow. Maybe his nerves were already strained. He decides not to defend U-488.
U-66 turns away from the warships. Seehausen abandons the milk cow to its own fate.
He doesn't obey orders to save his life and the life of his crew.
The sounds of distant explosions penetrate U-66's hull. The men listen in horror until the sea finally grows quiet, as U-488 is lost. It would be the last of Hitler's milk cows assigned to the Atlantic theater. And its sinking means that U-66 is the next target. The failed resupply leaves Oberleutnant Gerhard Seehausen even more dangerously low on provisions and fuel to return to port.
This is a very serious situation to him, because as soon as all fuel is spent, he's just drifting in the Atlantic.
The shortages are compounded by 2 prisoners on board.
The British prisoners came from a ship which was torpedoed by Seehausen. One of them was the captain of the ship. Seehausen had to share the provisions with the enemy.
At U-boat headquarters, Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz receives word that the attempt to resupply U-66 failed, and U-488 is gone. With no other milk cows left within range, they devise a plan to share from combat U-boats instead.
He decides to take other submarines operating in the vicinity to share their fuel and resources so that Seehausen can make it home.
But all their radio communications have attracted attention. A hunter-killer group that patrols the area is on the lookout.
CIC, we have confirmed U-boat contact.
At the center of these anti-submarine task forces is a warship called an escort carrier. First deployed by the U.S. Navy in 1943, they're smaller versions of famous ships like USS Hornet and Enterprise.
Escort carriers, they were called baby flat tops. Standard carriers take a long time to build. Escort carrier is a quick fix of the aircraft carrier problem.
This short construction timeline means American shipyards roll out one per week.
So this is the largest classification of any aircraft carrier ever made.
Over half the length of a conventional carrier, escort carriers transport just shy of 30 aircraft and have a top speed of 18 knots. In early May 1944, the escort carrier USS Block Island launches its planes in search of U-66. The presence of aircraft in the area can force a submarine to remain submerged and drain the batteries that power its electric motors.
The hold-down tactics are pretty bad for Seehausen because there's constantly an aircraft operating above the submarine.
As they stay down, the air on board turns foul. Seehausen and his men, worn down by dwindling supplies and scurvy, struggle to function.
His breathable air is getting wasted and wasted more and more. So it makes it harder for the crew to make perfect decisions.
In the early hours of May 6, 1944, Seehausen makes a choice.
At a certain point, they have to make a decision to surface and to stay surfaced to recharge the batteries.
In a remarkable twist of fate, the U-boat emerges just 5,000 meters from USS Block Island. The escort carrier's radar detects the German submarine. In this moment, the U-boat has the edge.
The escort carrier had a very thin hull. The job of Block Island and the other escort carriers is to get aircraft and destroyer escorts on the point of contact, not to be near the point of contact.
With no time to lose, the escort carrier orders an emergency turn to evade an attack by U-66. Then, Block Island orders a destroyer escort to intercept the U-boat. Despite the opportunity, Seehausen does not pursue the carrier. He travels in the other direction and tops up the U-boat's batteries.
The longer time the submarine has to charge its batteries, the longer time it will have in case of an emergency dive later on to get away from the hunter-killer group.
Just before 2:30 a.m., an Avenger bomber from USS Block Island locates U-66 on the surface. While most Avengers can carry up to a 2,000-pound bomb, unfortunately for this pilot, his aircraft has been customized for reconnaissance.
Night Owls were Avengers that were stripped of all weapons. That weight that was saved, you could cover the most area per gallon of fuel.
It would be frustrating for Lieutenant Jimmy Sellers.
He has a U-boat on the surface and he's teethless. So legend has it that he shot his .45 pistol at the conning tower.
Unaware that the aircraft carries no payload, U-66 fires its guns to keep the plane at bay, so the batteries can continue to charge. While the pilot distracts the U-boat crew, the destroyer escort, called USS Buckley, closes in. First commissioned by the Allies in early 1943, destroyer escorts are another class of warship, motivated by the need for fast and cheap construction. Armed with cutting-edge anti-submarine weapons, destroyer escorts take half the time of a conventional fleet destroyer to go to sea. From a distance of 13 kilometers, Lieutenant Commander Brent Abel coordinates their approach.
Abel's from Washington, D.C., in his late 20s. He takes command to go after the U-boats and win the Battle of the Atlantic.
He hopes that by approaching from the dark side, U-66 will mistake the destroyer for another German submarine.
Intelligence is telling him that the U-boat is looking to be resupplied, So his plan is to look at the stars, look at the moon, and then come in at an angle where the Germans may confuse his approaching vessel with the milk cow.
At a range of 3.5 kilometers, Abel's crew has orders to hold fire to maintain the deception. Through the darkness, the U-boat's silhouette becomes visible. Despite the diversion of the circling Night Owl Avenger, one of Seehausen's lookouts spots the danger.
He realizes that Buckley has spotted him. Usually he was supposed to dive away, because the destroyer is built to destroy a submarine.
But Seehausen makes a different choice.
Ultimately, he decides to fight a superior enemy.
In the early morning hours of May 6, 1944, an American destroyer escort, USS Buckley, steams toward the German U-boat U-66. On the submarine, First Watch Officer Oberleutnant Zerzi Klaus Herbig faces a daunting task. He must execute a torpedo attack against the narrow target.
The problem is, he only sees the frontal silhouette of the destroyer, which is less than 10% of the length. So he has to rely on a shot down the throat. The torpedo has to be in a perfect position to detonate.
Early detection by Buckley's crew means the escort avoids being struck. With its mission to distract the U-boat complete, the Night Owl Avenger continues to circle above, reporting on the action back to USS Block Island. A little before 3:30 a.m., the U-boat commander, Oberleutnant Gerhard Seehausen, opens his guns on USS Buckley. The destroyer escort replies.
The destroyer has many guns aboard and has a much higher rate of fire.
With the Americans breaking the deck of his submarine from a range of about 1,800 meters, Seehausen resorts again to his torpedoes and maneuvers for a shot.
The best weapon a submarine has against a surface ship is the torpedo. If he hit the destroyer, he might have a chance to evade.
But Lieutenant Commander Brent Abel's men detect the incoming attack. USS Buckley dodges.
The destroyer is running at full speed. He just needs a little alignment to get out of the way of the torpedo.
Now even closer and running parallel to the U-boat, the American crew's superior gunpower comes to bear. U-66's conning tower is riddled with gunfire. And high-caliber bullets puncture the submarine's pressure hull. Seehausen can no longer dive his U-boat. Unaware of the extent of the damage, Abel believes the Germans might still slip away. He issues an order to trap the U-boat on the surface.
Abel realized that he could use the bulk of the destroyer escort, which was bigger than the submarine, to his advantage.
USS Buckley turns to ram U-66. The metal hulls screech and grind, with the submarine pinned by the ship. Seehausen realizes the U-boat itself is now at risk with all its secrets. Chief Engineer George Olszewski receives orders to scuttle the submarine to keep it out of Allied hands.
At all costs, prevent any invaders that might want to go at your cipher machine or any important documents on board.
Seehausen needs to buy some precious minutes.
He has to prepare the self-destruction of the submarine. This takes time. Where does he get the time from? Having a boarding party like in Napoleonic times.
Weapons are brought topside. Led by First Watch Officer Klaus Herbig, a small group moves towards USS Buckley, still perched on the deck of the U-boat.
He uses something extremely special in the Second World War to create a distraction, buying Seehausen the time.
Lieutenant Commander Brent Abel watches Germans with guns now board his ship. He's believed to have issued an order unprecedented in World War II.
It's my understanding, and it's my feeling, that he did give the order that had not been given in over a century. Stand by to repel boarders.
Buckley's crew is caught unprepared.
A lot of the sailors do not have access to firearms, so they are punching people, they are throwing shell casings, even throwing a coffee cup.
In an unexpected hand-to-hand fight for their ship. Sailors aboard USS Buckley continue to fight off the Germans, who have turned the table on the destroyer escort that rammed their U-boat. Lieutenant Commander Brent Abel must act to prevent more enemy submariners from boarding his ship.
As the Germans are pouring out and continue to try and get on the Buckley, Abel reverses power and pulls away from U-66.
On board the war-torn U-boat, Oberleutnant Gerhard Seehausen and Chief Engineer George Olszewski continue the preparations to sink their own submarine.
It is the chief engineer's last duty to open the seacocks so seawater can come in and eventually the boat would disappear.
As German submariners abandon their stations, the prisoners captured from the merchant ship earlier in the patrol are caught in the crossfire.
They want to survive, but they probably have no understanding what will happen to them. Will they take care of us or will they leave us inside the submarine?
A sudden impact rattles those who remain on U-66. The German submarine collides with USS Buckley again, likely by accident. The chaos of the crash creates an opportunity as an American sailor lobs a grenade down the open hatch.
It landed in the conning tower, which exploded and essentially decapitated the U-66.
bullet-riddled and in flames, U-66 succumbs to the sea. Oberleutnant Gerhard Seehausen, 23 of his crew, along with the British captives, are lost. On USS Buckley, First Watch Officer Klaus Herbig and the other invaders are joined by those rescued from the sea. 36 German submariners, suffering from scurvy, survive. The condition of the beleaguered prisoners shocked their American captors.
Men who had been out of the sunlight and with a vitamin-deficient diet, these men were not in very good shape.
It's probably the best thing what could happen to them, becoming a prisoner of war in the United States. They probably had a good meal, coffee, chocolate, chewing gum. They are well treated.
They will join thousands of others who share the fate of the surviving crew of U-66. They're transported to America and spend the rest of the war in POW camps.
Different to being a prisoner of war in the Soviet Union. These pictures look very different.
Lieutenant Commander Brent Abel earns the Navy Cross for inspiring leadership and courageous, aggressive spirit in the battle against U-66. USS Buckley makes it back to safe port after makeshift repairs at sea.
The bow is severely damaged, so to contain flooding, rubberized mattresses are rammed into those portions of the forward bow.
By the end of World War II, hunter-killer groups would sink 53 German U-boats and seize one, sending nearly 5% of Hitler's submarine force to the seafloor.